I'm Glen. I'm an alcoholic. So, whenever I've been asked to lead meetings, I've always tried to keep one thing in mind, and that's don't think about what you're going to say, and tell the truth. And I've always sort of been interested in what was going to come out of my mouth, because it's really a privilege. It's so good for my sobriety to lead a meeting, because what you have to do, what I've always felt I have to do to be able to get up here and say something that is meaningful is to take an inventory, a genuine inventory. How many times during the day does someone ask you how you're doing and you respond? And I don't think, I'll speak for myself. When I say, hey, I'm doing fine, or I'm okay, I'm not trying to be disingenuous. I'm not trying to be closed. It's just, I don't generally know how I'm doing. So I say I'm doing fine. Before you get up here, if you want to be a sober guy, you better actually take a look at how you're doing. And I always enjoyed doing that because I was doing pretty well. But it was a little terrifying to ask that question. And it's also different than it's been in the past, because in the past, if I was scared about coming up and telling the truth, it was because I was worried about what you were going to think of me. Man, this journey I've been on, particularly in the last 3 years, is you think you know some stuff, and then you find out how little you know. What I've been afraid of is what I might think of myself, what might come out of my mouth if I got too close to that flame. So I just kind of left it alone. I said, look, the thing you owe yourself, having been through this ride that I've been on, is at least you got to look out the window. Because if you're going to take the train ride that hangs on the precipice, at least fucking enjoy the view. And I came in today just going, oh, okay, there's not a place in the world that I fit in and feel more comfortable than in this room. And for those of you who don't know, this meeting was, I don't know how many years ago, 17. This was the Wednesday night men's Stag over at Las Encinas. And Las Encinas was a very, very special place in those days. You could drive your car out back. And my kids were 5 when I got sober. And they used to come and ride their bikes around. And my wife came, and it was the Wednesday night meeting at Las Encinas. It was where I was born. It's where I was born. And then we moved over here. We did that for a bunch of reasons. Things changed over there. It's a hospital. And we were in that room over there, and it's kind of a claustrophobic room, couldn't accommodate this group. And that room was where I became a man. And I used to sit there sometimes. I'd try to get a window seat, and I'd just look out. And you could look out at that, and I'd say, what are the odds that a guy like me could find a place where he fits in and he wants to be on a Wednesday night with a bunch of other men who are there for one reason? We're here not to drink, but that's just what we got to do to get to the good stuff. And the good stuff is the journey. The good stuff is what we get to do when we don't drink and use. And the amount of personal growth that I know I've gone through and that I've seen other guys through, you don't get groups of guys who look like us and sound like us. You don't get groups of guys anywhere who get together on a Wednesday night just because they want to be better people, because they want to treat themselves well enough to be able to treat the people they love well. And I'll get back to the format of this briefly. I never tried to do a drunkalogue, but I got sober because I used to share one thing, and it's still my truth. I was a slippery guy. I got through med school, I got through fellowships, I had shiny things. I was not afraid of losing my career, obviously. I wasn't really afraid of losing the shiny things because I always was able to get them back. And I just kind of took for granted that, hey, I had this MD after my name. I just wasn't worried about it. I got sober for one reason, and those of you who knew me when I did know I'm telling the truth here. I got sober because I did not want one of you assholes fucking my wife and raising my children. And I was going to do, when that jig was up, I was willing to do anything. Now, I did it reluctantly. I was still looking for the back door. I was still looking for the, I wanted first class upgrade. And if it was available, I would have taken that route. Unfortunately, there are no upgrades in this path. And that's a fortunate thing too, because it is the journey and the process. I always used to say also, when you take something away from a guy like me, and I wouldn't be surprised if the same is true of a bunch of other guys in this room, you better give us something in return. So I came in very reluctantly because there was one thing I was not willing to lose. I knew I wanted to be a dad when I was 14, and now I had this family that was everything I ever hoped for, and I knew I was going to lose it. I knew I had found a woman who had enough sense of herself and enough genuine dignity that she would not stick around with a loser drunk. It didn't matter how many initials I had after my name or how much shiny stuff I had. I knew I had run into someone who had self-esteem, and that as much, and I think she loved me, and I knew she was going to kick me to the curb, and I wasn't willing to let that happen. Then I got in here and I said, hey, I'm a guy who likes a good deal. I'm here to tell you, not only is this a good deal, it's the only deal. And I've taught myself that as I watched that woman I just told you about die an awful, awful death in slow motion during COVID. And it broke me into 1,000 pieces. I thought I had been hit before, and I lost parents. We all deal with loss. I shattered like a piece of crystal, and there was nothing to pick up. And there was nothing I wanted picked up. If I hadn't wanted her children not to lose both parents, you would not be talking to me right now. Somehow found a way to survive it. Some people stuck by me and just helped me pick up the pieces and just get to the next day. And I tell you what really has changed for me now, and I think despite my best efforts, what I realized about myself is all the other stuff has kind of changed with time. I woke up one day and I said, well, you're not a husband anymore because she's gone. And I always thought I wanted to retire, so, who doesn't want to get to a place where the bastards don't control you anymore? And I can do that. And I'm not really a father the same way because my boys are 21 years old. I'm just not as important to them. So over the course of, it seemed like an overnight, I was no longer much of a doctor, wasn't a husband, and I was much less important as a father. How am I doing? That's a shock to the system. And, the shock went as far as to say, I'm really not worth very much. I wasn't worth very much to myself. I didn't really know where to find any value. And this animal, whatever we call grief, whatever we call having your life broken the way I did, when it gets hold of you, it's like being in the clutches of a wild animal. It plays with you, it does what it wants with you until it is done with you. And fortunately, I survived. And one day I woke up and I was given back the ability to make some choices. I tell you what, fellas, if one more guy had said to me, attitude is a choice, I would have taken out of preschool, okay? Because attitude was not a choice for me for quite a while. And when it was given back, and I started to have the choice in just getting out of bed, the choice in not vomiting, the choice in not shitting myself, when I got the choice back, I realized one thing that kind of is more important to me than everything else. And that's that I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a father, I wasn't a husband, but I still was a sober man. And I got to tell you, when I remembered that, and when I realized that, I had something to work with again. I had something to live for again. And then it was just like in the beginning, where I said, you know what? This is a good deal. And I like good deals. And I jumped on it. And I jumped on it. And damn, if this world doesn't look different when you start going to meetings, working the steps, talking to your sponsor, and doing some service. If you want to stay sober, not many people go out who do those 4 things. It's not that complicated. I'm a golfer, and I always get a kick out of it when some guy goes, "Oh, you golf? We should get out sometime." And I say, "Okay, I'd love to do that." And he says, "Yeah, I haven't played in 3 years, but let's get out." And I look at him like, "Well, we can do that, but I'd imagine it's not going to be a lot of fun, for him, because golf is hard." And there aren't many people, unless you really played as a kid, or unless you're some kind of extraordinary athlete, it is really difficult, and I haven't seen it too often, that a guy picks up the sticks after not having swung a club in 4 years, and goes out, and other than turning it into a drinking game, really has a good time. Sobriety's sort of the same deal, okay? You cannot have had a drink in a while, but if you don't put the time in, if you don't do this thing as it's constructed, and if you don't do the things that are really, really hard to do, we're all good at the easy stuff. All growth comes when we do the stuff that is really difficult. And sobriety is simple, and it requires a lot of work. And when you don't put the work in, even if you don't drink, you're not going to have the brand of sobriety where we look around and we go, "I want what he has. I want to live my life the way that guy's living. He looks comfortable." I may finish with this. Is this how much I've gone? Or
Do whatever you want.
Okay. I got a call last week. My kid was actually, I've got 2 great kids, and one of them he's in Europe with a bunch of his friends. Paid for the whole trip himself. The kid is growing a business, and his mother would be so proud of him, and I am so proud of him. He's in Europe with a bunch of friends, and I get a call Friday, and it's, "Dad, I've got a mole on my chest. I don't like the way it looks." And that's just what you want to hear when you've been through a health crisis like I have, that ended up with your wife in a body bag. Your kid's in Europe with a mole, and then he sends me a picture of it, and I don't like the looks of it. So I had a buddy in town. He came in really just to go to all these Met games in San Diego and Anaheim, whatever. And we had tickets to the game Friday night, and I turned to him and I said, "Look, he's a big boy, he can make it home from the airport, but I'm not going to enjoy the game if we don't, I've got to go pick him up." And my friend said, "Of course, I get it. Let's go pick him up." So now I've got a buddy in town, tickets to the game, and I'm driving to LAX at 5:30 p.m. Well, I'm the kind of guy that would have done a whole lot to avoid going to LAX at 5:30 at night. And we're circling the airport, because there's no place to park. My friend's in town missing the game. And we got some music on. And I'm realizing that I'm just about as happy and contented as I ever need to be. I'm circling LAX in 5:30 traffic, having blown off a baseball game that my buddy's in town to see, and I'm okay with it. And not only was I okay with it, there's no place else in the world I wanted to be, because I was taking care of my kid. And my wife has left me in some ways, but she was right there with me. She was right there with me. And you talk about a living amends. My God, we do this stuff, and we talk about this stuff, not because it's good theater, but because it's real, because it works. And when it works for you, it is a miracle. And the word I thought about, I wanted to come in here tonight, I wanted to say, just don't go in with any expectations, because I bet there's going to be enough in that room that it's going to find you. That's hard for a guy like me, because patience is not my strongest virtue. But I came in here and I said, let it find you. And it'll be more valuable than if you go find it and you try to make it happen. See what it's got for you, genuinely. And when I came in, and I was welcomed by a lot of these guys who I've been doing this with for a long time, where we've seen one another go through a lot, where there's genuine care and affection, and it's good to see you. The word that I was struck by, and the word that gives what we do here power, is sacred. And there aren't too many things that genuinely fit that bill, and this is one of them. And again, when you take something away from a guy like me, I want something in return. I didn't think I'd ever find it with some of the things I've lost. And the greatest gift I've gotten is that I'm finding it. Prerequisite for me to find anything of value is that I'm a sober man, because it's the only way I like myself. It's the only way of any use to myself and to other people. And you talk about grateful alcoholic, I'm one of them. Thank you.